What's going on, everybody? In this video, I wanted to talk about my advice for being a good TL at Lambda School. If you don't know what a TL is, it's kind of like a team lead or tech lead or just a teaching assistant. So they're going to be spending a lot of their time with you if you're a new student, and about 90% of the times that you're going to be needing help or anything like that, it's going to be coming from a TL, whether it's yours or another TL from some other location or something. You can also get help from like the instructors or your other fellow students, but most of the times it's going to be through a TL. So why is this important enough for me to make a video about? So I honestly believe that a TL can make or break a student's experience and their overall view of what Lambda School is and what it represents. So I've personally had TLs that would just disappear on me and not answer Slack messages and be gone for like an entire week and then come back and be like, hey, did you get that figured out? And I'd be like, nope, where the hell were you? And then I've had amazing TLs that, would go out of their way to help me and challenge me and really help mold me and get me to the point where they were a few months ago. So I've seen both sides of those. And then I've also been a TL myself and been in charge of a few groups and all that. So you kind of get to see a lot of that when you get put in that space. So that's why I think that it's something that's very important for me to talk about. And so I wanted to go over just my top 5 small pieces of advice for what I think makes a good TL. So the first thing is your students will be nervous during their first few days, and in some cases, so will you, especially if you're not the most comfortable with just public speaking. In a lot of cases, this could be your first time public speaking, and even if you are good at public speaking, sometimes public speaking like in front of a computer during a video conference can feel a little bit different. So I know for me, I was extremely nervous during my first day when I had my first group of students, and my hands were shaking and all that stuff, but you need to also understand that they might also be nervous. A lot of them had to restructure their entire life. Some of them had to quit their jobs. Some people quit college to come to Lambda and all that. So a lot of them are going to be pretty nervous. On top of the fact that they don't know what to expect from these classes. So they heard that they're online and all that, and they heard that they're going to be in a Zoom with lectures and other students, but it's still a pretty new experience for a lot of people. So they're going to be very nervous. So a few things that you can do in order to help that is, one, tell them about yourself. Like, tell them about you, what got you into Lambda School, as far as like your elevator pitch. Like, how did you get into tech? How did you get into Lambda? And tell them about your experience so far. Let them know what you've liked so far. Let them know about the subjects that you struggled with. And that kind of gives them a window of what to expect. Let them know who your favorite teachers were and all that and why. It gives them something to look forward to, so that they kind of get a nice little window view of what it's going to be like for them. And then ask them about themselves, let them talk for a little bit and try to remember their names. I know for me, I'm not very good with names, but I sat there and I wrote everybody's name down and everything. I even took a little screenshot for a little bit because I wanted to remember everybody's name, and I wrote down some of the facts that they told me just so I could remember and have good conversations with them, good meaningful conversations with them, and really get to know them and let them get to know me. So that might ease the tension up a little bit. Just make yourself very approachable to them. The next advice would be to challenge your students beyond the material. Treat the sprint reviews like a job interview and ask them questions relevant to what they just learned, but won't always know. So I found that while I was going through job interviews, I felt really great when I was answering the questions and I was able to knock them out. But then you always get those questions that you just don't know the answer to, especially if it's something that you never studied or didn't even know existed. So you get this really high feeling, and then you hit that wall, and then you get this low feeling, and the whole entire time you're thinking about, that's it, I'm done. Like, this interview isn't going well, and you're not really thinking about recovering. You're not thinking about the next question. And so having that feeling already become natural to you, if you could do that for a student during the sprint reviews, and like, all jokes aside, let's treat this like an interview. I want you to answer these questions for me. And a lot of the questions they won't know, and that's completely okay. You have to let them know that it's okay if they don't know, and if they just want to take a shot at it and they don't 100% know, but they still want to take a shot, then that's fine. What you want to get out of them is, one, you want to be able to get the honesty out of them. Let them know that it's okay to say you don't know, or that it's okay to say, hey, I don't know, but I want to take a shot at it. And then, if they fail, then it's completely fine for them to do so. The whole point of that is so that they can get used to that low feeling of not knowing the question, but continue to move forward, knowing that that's not the end of your interview. You still have a chance for more success. They don't expect you to get 100% of the questions right. So being able to do that You can also have the students, like for me, my students eventually would go out of their way to study the material they learned further because they knew that I was going to ask a question, and so they wanted to prepare themselves. And like I'd say probably a good 10% of the times, like they would get the answers right just because of that extra studying. For the rest of that, I went over it with them and explained to them, okay, here's the answer, here's where you can find the material on it. But it gave them that little extra prep that wasn't just a part of what Lambda expected of them. All right, so the next one is write meaningful PR for review commits, review comments. So when you go through the GitHub pull request, it would be easier to see that they did the project, you run it, you see that it works, you merge it, and then move on. The true benefit comes from seeing review comments that tell the students how they can improve their code, what different directions they could take, even how to just clean it up. So I find that if you ever learned how to code on your own, like for me, before Lambda School, I spent about a year or so learning on my own. I didn't have that space where I could ask somebody like, hey, what do you think of my code? Does it look good? I know it works, but does it look good? Is this good code? The reason why people go to Lambda School is for that structure. And so you can be a part of that structure by telling them what they could do with the code in order to improve it, to make it better, what they could have done with it, how to make it more readable, things like small things like variable names, function names, things like that, in a lot of cases, you can even challenge what they wrote and ask them, why did you decide to write it like this? It might not be because it's wrong. It might just be because you want to know that this person knows what they're doing, and then they're not just copying and pasting like what they did during the lecture for no reason, because that happens a lot as well. All right, so another tip is to give them a heads up to how the next sprint will be. If it's going to be rough, then let them know that they should work ahead of the material and maybe give them some resources to follow. Make yourself extra available. For me, myself, during that time, I would give small lectures. Like when we went through Redux, I saw a couple of my students said that they were struggling with some of the material. And so for one, I told them to study ahead of time. I've been telling them at this point, I've been telling them for about 3 or 4 weeks now. And so a lot of them did. And once it hit, some of the concepts were, kind of misses because there's so much stuff to cover in a short time. So I opened up a Zoom lecture for my small group, and I basically just went over it in as simple as you possibly can. I extracted all of the syntax and just gave them what's happening, so the concept of Redux. And a lot of times doing something like that for your students can simplify a lot of it up for them. All they have to worry about is plugging everything in. They already know why they're doing something, and that can really help push them like over the edge to be able to get through things. I also would keep a Zoom open, and then if they needed help, they would just hop in, or another student would be able to hop in and help another student. So just be as approachable and as available as possible during those tough times. And also give them a heads up when something's going to be easy. That way they know that it's okay to relax a bit, because Lambda School does have some weeks that are pretty easy. And so if they already know that they're coming, then they know they don't have to work so hard, and that they could take some extra time to work ahead, or just relax a little bit, not be so stressed out with the material. And the last thing is show them how you have chosen to cope with things like mental stress, imposter syndrome, burnout, etc. So in a lot of cases, this might be their first go around at learning to code, and so they might not be aware that these things exist. Maybe they were aware that they existed in their previous jobs or whatever, but it's a little bit different in code, especially when you're learning at Lambda School. A lot of times there's a lot of solitude that goes with it. So you're sitting in front of a laptop or a computer or a Mac or whatever, and you're coding for hours, and your family's living their life, and your friends are living their life, and you're stuck over here doing this for the next months, like a couple months to a year or two or whatever, however long it takes you to finally get that job. And so telling them how you got through a lot of these things, and also pushing that it's okay to take these breaks, and to stick to these breaks, and what to even do during these breaks. Like for me, I used to do like just small workouts during my breaks, and in my mind I would set goals like I want to do 30 or 40 push-ups, within this time, and a whole bunch of like stupid little stuff like that. But that kept me off the laptop, it kept me off the computer, off of the code that I was working on, gave me a break, even kept me off my phone for a little bit. And then from there, I would get back on, push the phone off to the side. I wouldn't even look at it, and I've had like 100 missed calls by the time I did my PR. But because of that, I don't experience the burnout that a lot of people talk about. I do experience some of the imposter syndrome. I've experienced that before, and a lot of that can come from when you see somebody else doing like something amazing that you're struggling with, or like when you're just barely able to get your app up and everybody else is doing sliding animations and all this other stuff. My usual advice to that is, if you see somebody like that that intimidates you, or that you see is always doing amazing things while you're struggling, just reach out to that person. Have the student reach out to them and ask them questions. There's a lot of things that you can get from befriending somebody like that, and in some cases, like for me, I basically made some of these people my mentors. Like, I went to them and asked them a bunch of questions because they're experiencing these projects live, so they're making these decisions as like at the same time that you're going through the project. So being able to see their different viewpoints and how they approach certain problems can really help you out and help you see how other people think. So instead of thinking of these students as the enemy, think of them as an ally, somebody that can help you get through what you're doing and maybe even improve yourself. So that was a big tip that I always told my students, how to just get through imposter syndrome. Like, you're not an imposter, you're just surrounded by people who think differently and who approach problems differently. So if you can get yourself into the space where you're right there with them approaching these problems, then I think you'll be able to let go of those feelings of imposter syndrome a lot sooner and be able to move forward. So those are my top tips for how to be a great TL. And if you have any questions or comments, or you just don't agree with something I said, feel free to put them down below. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe and share the video. It would help me and the channel out. I would like to grow it out and be able to do a lot more with it. Be able to get enough subscribers to where it would make sense for me to like really invest into video equipment and editing. And who knows, I might do one of those day in the life videos I've been talking about, the ones where I leave my camera outside, drive my car past it, and then stop, get out, pick up my camera, and then take it to work with me and all that. So we'll see. Till then, I'll see you guys next time. Thanks for stopping by.